Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Victor Adefuye. I think I got that right, the managing director of Winning by Design. Did I get your name right, Victor?
It was very, very close. Victor Adefuye is the most common way that people pronounce that. Adefuye if you're Nigerian, but yes, I think that was a good shot.
All right, good. So you're not Irish, I take it.
No, no, not Irish, not Irish. A little further south than
Oh,
Ireland.
yeah, I understand. Okay, so this, to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. I've actually had a long and kind of circuitous career to where I am right now. I started off practicing law, and after 4 or 5 years of doing that, realized that I didn't want to be a lawyer.
Mhm.
And so was kind of looking for the next thing to do. Ended up in financial services sales, where I kind of learned what I call the hand-to-hand combative sales,
Mhm.
trying to get small businesses and high net worth individuals to give me money to invest for them, and then or for my employer to invest for them, and helping them think of on the small business side the employee benefits. Really loved sales, loved the employee benefits world. Through that experience, I met an entrepreneur who was a serial entrepreneur and had an idea for a business that was kind of tapped into my law background, was in the employee benefits space, and he wanted his co-founder to have sales experience. And so he and I started a company together, and that was my first kind of startup experience. But even with the sales experience that I brought to that, I realized that it's really, really hard to build a company from nothing, particularly if you're offering something new and innovative to the market, when you don't really understand sales. And I
Mhm.
saw that even with my limited sales background at that time, I had a leg up than a lot of other tech founders around me. And so once we unfortunately had to wind that company down, I decided that there was a business here. I really wanted to dedicate my life to working with early stage founders and their early sales teams to figure out go-to-market strategy and sales process. Long story short, I'm at Winning by Design. They acquired my practice, and here I am.
Wow. So have you been, I mean, most of your career basically benefits and sales, or would you say more sales?
It's certainly at this point it's more sales. The employee benefit space was the first kind of space that I was an entrepreneur in, and so I have a lot of experience selling, especially tech products that are in the employee benefit space. But since that time, I've worked with companies in various industries and various spaces, so pretty well versed in many areas of B2B sales, which actually is one of the reasons I love this job, is because I get to learn more about new industries and businesses every day.
Very cool. So tell us what Winning by Design does. It's an interesting name, but it could mean many things. You would think of it as dealing with sports, but I have a feeling it deals with business. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. So Winning by Design, we are a sales consultancy based in Silicon Valley, but we have folks all over the world. I'm in New York along with a couple of my other colleagues, but we have folks in China and Brazil and Europe, and of course, throughout the United States. We largely work with technology startups, but I would say broadly, it's recurring revenue businesses that have an interest in expanding accounts and growing accounts and having those and retaining those accounts and having them kind of expand with you. And so, when you have a recurring revenue business, more attention and care needs to be placed in what is the impact, the results that these new customers are trying to achieve, and to ensure that you can deliver that impact. Because unless you do, they won't renew, they won't upsell, they won't cross-sell, they won't be references, they won't grow and expand. And so we're really teaching our clients how to identify the right opportunities, close the right opportunities that are going to receive that impact, and then expand those accounts. And so we really work with clients, I would say, as early as that the large seed round, all the way up to going public with an IPO, really with a focus on helping them to identify their best customers, pursue those customers, engage them in a sales process that reflects best practices. And then once those customers are closed, on the CS side of things, making sure that you have a good systems in place for onboarding, for retaining those accounts, getting renewals, and expanding them.
Interesting. So, I mean, and I've worked in the recurring revenue, a couple companies with that. And one of the biggest things is customer service. So do you help them with that?
Yeah, customer success is a big part of our practice. And frankly, given my experience with sales and what, I've learned a lot about customer success since joining Winning by Design. And I really think this is an area where, businesses do not pay enough attention, because, without a doubt, you can, the effort that it takes to acquire a new customer is going to be leaps and bounds above the effort it takes to expand and grow and get referrals and references from existing customers. Mm-hmm. So being as thoughtful about the processes and the practices that you have in place for customer success, I think, is almost as important. I don't want to knock my sales folks out there, but I think the CS stuff is very, very important.
I would agree. I think they go hand in hand. And
yeah,
right. Sure. And then it's funny. I've worked for a few companies that they would put up banners. Our motto is customers come first. And then after that, no one followed that. So I assume you do more than put up banners, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's one thing to say customers come first. It's another thing to actually put in place practices and policies that motivate your employees to put their customers first, and then to also, how do we make sure that the onboarding experience is excellent so that people don't get buyer's remorse? How do we plan for the renewal conversation, not just the day before the renewal conversation, but months in advance, to make sure that we're on track to do so? And then, of course, expansion growth, I think, these are all things that there should be concrete processes in place, and KPIs and accountabilities and all that.
Yes, and typically the bigger the company, they've learned these lessons. But the startups, they're really just concentrating on sales at first, correct?
Yeah. I think as a general rule of thumb, if you've gotten past that $1 million ARR point and you're approaching $2, $3, $4 million, I think an investment in customer success makes a ton of sense at that point, because for you to really grow, you got to have a strong baseline, and that base can't be dwindling and constantly be churning. And so, holding that the revenue that you've already worked so hard to close, I think, spending some time thinking about that goes a long way.
Yeah. So it sounds like, pre-pandemic, it sounds like you were a distributed company. Would that be safe to say that you had offices in different parts of the world and people would go into the office, right?
Oh yeah, we were a remote company before being a remote company was cool, and I was working exclusively remote even before I joined Winning by Design. This has been my life since at least 2015. So it's a new world for most people, but one that I personally know well, and my colleagues at Winning by Design for sure know very well as well.
And so you were working remotely beforehand, but you were acquired. When were you acquired? Was it during the pandemic?
No, it was before the pandemic. So I joined Winning by Design in 2019, end of 20. Okay. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it's shortly before it.
Yeah, right before.
Yeah, and they were also a purely remote company, or were they? And the difference between distributed and remote is distributed has distributed offices.
No, we were remote.
Remote?
Yeah, we had a home office, mostly an address, I would say, to collect mail in Palo Alto. But are even the folks in the California region or the San Francisco area, they were all working primarily from home. I don't think anybody went to the office to work on a regular basis. And so, and obviously folks like me in New York, the folks that we have internationally, there are no home offices there. Their homes are their offices or wherever they choose to set up.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I would assume the people in the Palo Alto office didn't go into the office because of traffic. I can attest to that firsthand. That has a lot to do with it in the Bay Area and New York, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as most people have discovered in the last year and a half, there are distinct benefits in cutting out your commute. Nobody enjoys it. I mean, I kind of liked commuting because I listened to podcasts and could read and stuff like that, but I don't miss it much at all. And there's a lot of efficiencies that come in getting that hour to 2 hours back for each person. So yeah, I think we were all glad to not have to commute even before the pandemic.
Yes, I think, and I actually think in most cases in the Bay Area, you got back 2 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And I would think too that since the pandemic, most people gave an hour of that back to their company and an hour of that to themselves. Would probably be the most common.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think, first of all, I don't know if our experience is necessarily the best because we are, one of the fastest growing companies in the country, according to Inc. magazine. And so, I would say that those hours are probably taken up more with work. My understanding is that for a lot of folks, that has been true too. The pandemic and the lack of structure and that lack of, I got to get home at some point and I got to get here to the office at some point. I think a lot of people kind of filled that time with work. And I think as remote work becomes more secure and a normal part of our lives going forward, I think people need to give more thought into how to strike that right balance between work and the other things that are important to them, because it's very easy to just work.
Yeah, well, especially March of 2020, I think.
Yeah,
more like April. People are like, all right, the shock's over. Now, like, I can't go anywhere. I might as well work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I think, things came back to normal and things are starting to slip a little bit again. So hopefully, but I think people have learned the lesson that, burnout was a real thing there for a while.
Indeed. It very much still is. It's a constant effort, especially if you love what you do, like I do and my colleagues do, and you're really passionate about it and you're successful at it. People want you to do it for them. It's very easy to fill that time with more work. And so got to make sure you have that right balance.
Yes. But let's say going forward, I'm assuming Winning by Design will still be a 100% remote company, true?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And do you think the pandemic caused, made you change your mind about anything, or did you think, okay, now we can really, like, did you used to say, well, we'll try to get people in New York, or we'll try to get people in California, or and now you're saying we can get anybody from anywhere, or was it always like that?
It was kind of always like that, that we were recruiting folks from basically anywhere. That's, I think, has been an advantage for us. And I think for a lot of companies that are dipping their toes in this water, they're realizing that it's an advantage as well. Because talent is everywhere and not always, connected to the big cities. And so just the flexibility to be able to find that talent, not only across the United States, but like I said, across the world, I think has been a real advantage for us in the recruiting market.
Well, interestingly, most of the people I interview are the opposite of you. They were the 9 to 5 in the office, and they're amazed at, oh my God, I can recruit from anywhere. And it helped them. You've always done it that way. Have you noticed more competition for this talent that's all over the world, or is there just so much of it that it really doesn't matter?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I'm less involved with the recruiting at Winning by Design. I do know that, it does seem like finding the right folks is taking maybe a little bit longer than it had previously. But Yeah, I mean, look, I think this pandemic and the work from home revolution, if you want to call it that, is really a revolution, a rebalancing of power, if you will, between employers and employees. And
Mhm.
I think that employees are now seeing that, hey, I can be productive and I can control my schedule a little bit more.
Mhm.
And then employers are seeing that people can be productive from everywhere and they don't necessarily have to be in the office. And so, it's really changed the perspective that everyone has. And I think it is empowered workers, so it's been a benefit to them. But on the employer side, it's also a benefit for the reasons you said, the ability to find talent anywhere and bring them under your wing without them having to live near a major office.
Mhm. And the other thing fair number of executives have told me is that, we don't have to have an office anymore, and that frees up money for talent. And
Yes.
they do it all kinds of different ways, all of them. Some of them go out and hire people, some of them give them more benefits or perks or whatever, but help, they're buying stuff for their home offices, stuff like that. So, but I think it has benefited everybody in general.
Yeah, it really has. And obviously, from a macroeconomic standpoint, the death of the office build park, if you will, is not necessarily a good thing, right? For real estate, commercial real estate prices and all of that. As someone who lives in New York and knows what Midtown Manhattan used to be like,
Mhm.
millions of people coming in there every single day and commuting out. There's a whole economy that's built around that,
Mhm.
lunch places and vendors that sell on the street, right? And so there's definitely going to be some pretty big changes, but I think it'll balance out because another big lesson from this experience, ironically, is that just as much as it's taught us that people don't need to come into the office every day to work, I think it's also shown where face-to-face contact really is valuable.
Mhm.
And I think that even if people aren't coming to the office every day, chances are people will come in, twice a week if
Mhm.
they're near an office, maybe 3 times a week. And they'll find that there still is room for a place, there still is a need for a location where colleagues can come together, whether it's for training or
Mhm.
strategic planning or just the periodic get together so that you can be in touch with the people that you're on Zoom
Mhm.
meetings with every day. I find that has been the importance of that is really proven itself over the last few months because there are many of my colleagues I haven't never even met before,
Mhm.
and I just had the pleasure of meeting a few of them a couple of weeks ago, and in that short meeting I felt like our working relationship was benefited. So
Mhm.
I still think there will be a reason to go to an office, just not as frequently. And maybe it doesn't even need to be an office. One
Right.
of the things that we're thinking about at Winning by Design is since we are international distributed team or remote team, then perhaps we're thinking about investing in a few places around the world where our colleagues can decide to go work from for extended
Mm.
periods of time. And
Mm.
I think those regular connections with your colleagues, even if it's once every couple of months, once a quarter, it really go a long way.
They do. Yeah, I think actually what people are going to do, they're going to go more to the WeWork model, and you're not going to have your own desk and workspace when you go into the office. It's going to be it's going to be a smaller version of what it was. And
Mhm.
as people come in, they're just going to, work together and for a day or two, and then, that's what I think will be the model going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I think large companies will always have,
Mhm.
a need for their own, maybe custom design spaces. But mid-size organizations, if you're only having your workforce come in a couple of days a week, then you don't really need that much space, if at all. So the
Right.
WeWork model, certainly not exclusive space, but the WeWork model would be really effective there.
Yeah, and WeWork's just the most common one people. There's also Aurigas right by my too. I'll give them a plug.
There are many co-working spaces. I have a colleague of mine, or colleague. I have a friend of mine who owns just a couple of co-working locations here in Brooklyn, and they're finding that co-working that's closer to home is beneficial, because people don't want to be home all day. They want to have a place that they can choose to go and work and interact and see other people. And so, yeah, I think that's a big trend as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, Victor, I know it's late there, so I want to thank you for your time today.
Sure.
And thank you for joining us, and good luck to Winning by Design. It sounds like you guys are already winning, but I'll still wish you luck and have a great evening.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.